It's awesome. When I see the countdown, I always want to say Rhythm Nation when it gets to the one.
That was such a good album.
How's that
It's such a
song
good
go?
album. It's we are a part of a rhythm nation. And then there's some other words I don't know. It's like
Something about with music by my side, something.
Music by my
Mostly
side.
because I really love the movie Happy Feet 2, and that was like the first song.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's just
I
goodness.
don't even know that one.
Oh, it's sad.
Okay, well, welcome back to the Obvious Choice Podcast, everybody. I'm a little bit slow getting going today. Just woke up from a nap. But today we're going to do part 3, going through all of our, what are we calling these? Like rules for...
The 22 lessons from a $5 million coaching business.
It's such a cringy fucking title.
That's awful.
But, well, this is something that I'm struggling with finding my place, and increasingly, I think that I'm starting to find my place, but I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of cringe stuff every so often if there's like a real goal with it. And I also think that like some of the times cringe things like that, like they just convert better. Like if you have, I mean, there's so much of it in the fitness industry where you're like, all right, do you really need to put that picture of those abs there? But it's so clear that if you don't, it does much worse. So where do you stand on that spectrum? And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but there's absolutely like one way that quote unquote works better if your metrics of working better or not working better is like more people are paying attention to this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And there's a spectrum that you have to sit on. So we'll get to the final ones of those today. I think you said there's like 6 left, Amber, which is cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just woke up from a nap, and I don't know, do people care about like daily routines and stuff? Today is pretty much my perfect day, the way that it's organized, and it's taken me like 37 years to figure out. 37 years, that's stupid. I didn't know anything about this when I was 2. It's taken me like 20 years to figure out what my perfect routine as an adult was. And I'm an absurd morning person. Like once the rest of the world wakes up and starts interrupting me or distracting me, I'm basically finished all of my useful work for the day. If I can achieve anything in any way, shape, or form useful once like work quote unquote hours start, it's like the most amazing day ever. So my best day is I'll wake up at the ass crack of dawn. I wake up at 5 a.m. and I'll do 2.5 hours of like focused work. So woke up at 5. I set up everything to go ready to go the night before, which is one of the tricks. So coffee is ground, water is like ready to be boiled, all of my clothes are laid out, everything, the computer, all of my notes, anything I'm working on is already open on my computer, like everything's set up the night before. And then I stumble downstairs. I mean, usually take a piss, I guess. I don't know why that's important, but it's part of the process. Boil the water, and then I get to doing that focused work, and that's my like focused work for the day if I could get that done. So now most of the time that's writing the book. And then my family wakes up and we do breakfast and everything like that, and then I'll go work out at 9. And I work out at 9 o'clock in the morning to 10, and I'm back at like 10:30 because I ride my bike there. Have food, breakfast, try to get another hour or 2 work done. Today I was actually good. I focused. So usually when I have like my breakfast or my lunch, my second meal of the day is when I post to social media. So I'll get back from the workout, I'll eat, I'll post to social media. And then I'll try to do another hour and a half, 2 hours of like super focused work. Today I was good at it, and I'll shut everything else off and ignore everything else. Today I was good at it, and then I'll do a nap in the afternoon. Even just like a power nap, like 30, 45 minutes. And then the rest of the day, kind of clean up whatever garbage. You own the business, you have to do some business administration stuff all of the time because you own a business type work. I'll do that for the rest of the day. And then by 4 or 5 o'clock, I'm generally done. So yeah, that's been today so far. It's been good.
At what point in the day do you harass Amber in regular 5-minute intervals? Is that just all day? Do you save up for that? Is that after nap harassment?
It's as early as 7 a.m. some days. As late as 11 p.m. on other days.
Oh, there you go. That's it. It's a good schedule, John.
I have no further comment.
So sometime before breakfast, he's like, waffles and Amber Reynolds.
There's a trade-off,
she doesn't
though.
need to respond, okay?
Yeah, well, part of that is my anxiety, but also, I mean, to be fair, like that's part of kind of like the arrangement. I have a wildly flexible schedule, and so that means I'm also wildly flexible about when I respond to things because sometimes they're important. So that's just the way it works.
Yeah, you kind of just message me at any given time. You're like, by the way, now I'm gonna work from 12 to 7.
Mm-hmm. It's not like you remember, but I'm always like terrified of getting in trouble, and so I feel like I need to say at least I can have that off of my brain, so that way I can be like, well, I told you.
We used to be so much more structured with how we operated when the team was much bigger, when we had real like layers of management. We were trying to get done so much more. I mean, we were trying to achieve more. We were, in fact, achieving considerably less. But we had multiple layers of management, and we were like so strict. And I kind of, one of the areas of reassessment that I made was like, I kind of just don't want to run a business like that.
Right.
And I think that probably at a certain size of business has to be much better structured than ours is. But I don't want anything to do with it. Maybe I will at one point. But again, I mean, there's trade-offs with all of this, isn't there? And so what I decided was, okay, well, let's perhaps make a little bit less money, but make more profit, so there's much more leeway, and then we can work on the projects we want with the people we want, and we can have the lives that we want to have while we're doing it, and not feel like we need to give up time today in order to achieve something tomorrow, so that tomorrow we can live a better life if we suffer today. I wonder a lot of the times when I was doing that back in the day, what I was actually doing and the reasons that I was doing it for. Like, was it ego driven? Or what was I even hoping to accomplish? Or was I just going through the motions? Because every time I took a step back, I was like, oh, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? Does it really matter that we get this whatever publication out? Does it really, like is the world going to change? Is our world going to change if we get this out? Or is our world going to be meaningfully different or worse if we get done a little bit less, but we get done better, whatever we do a little bit less? It seems to be working pretty good, eh, Amber?
It does. There's two things I truly don't miss from that time period is the whatever planning document that we had to do every time we did a project or started a new project, whatever document
all the project briefs, yeah.
Yeah, and then the document of updating all the numbers in the Google Sheet thing.
See, I never looked at either of those. That was the silliest thing.
I know.
Well, and I think that was the disconnect, wasn't it? That me as the owner of the company was so completely disinterested in all of the stuff being done to operate the company. And I was like, well, maybe like we can bring in like layers of management so I don't need to look at this stuff. It's like, well, it kind of doesn't work that way. Yeah. You're kind of in it or you're not in it. And I don't think that any of it was like inherently wrong or bad. I think it was just wrong for us. I think it was just a lot of the wrong moves for us for the way that I wanted to run the business and what we were achieving.
Yeah.
The no fun zone.
It wasn't the no fun zone. I mean, we
had great people working with us.
Yeah,
it
was
no fun.
Well, you just kept getting fired. That's why.
All I remember is a series of firings. It's a no fun zone for me.
On that note.
Yeah. What do we got?
Yeah.
6 more.
We got 6 more cringe-worthy topics.
Than that. Yeah, but you'll only become an overnight success after you've been grinding in private for years. Can we rephrase that? Because that makes me a little uncomfortable the way that's worded.
What, grinding in private? Is
that
why?
Yeah, it's a little weird.
No, we're going to keep
Grinding
it.
privates.
Grinding Ryan's private?
Jesus.
The 2003 Tom Hanks film?
No, it was the film that came after that.
Oh, okay.
No, not Tom Hanks. That's Tom Spanks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Grinding Ryan's
Tom Spanks.
Sequel. The polyamorous vegans aren't going to like that.
There's
very much,
not,
John.
I mean, I don't know. There's not a lot to say on that one, is there? It's just, it's this idea that every time that you hear about somebody, you're like, oh my God, where'd you come from? You must have this like crazy secret. And then you get to talk to them and you actually hear their full story. It's like, oh no, you were just like doing the work. You were doing the work day in and day out, day in and day out. I kind of feel like what I'm doing now is a lot of that. And we'll see like 5 years from now where I end up. But I'm doing a tremendous amount of work now that's just like day-to-day execution stuff. I'm putting out the content. We're recording the podcasts. We're working to get the stuff on different platforms. I'm writing the book. I'm all of these things that are, and some of them, don't get me wrong, perform well, but a lot of them actually don't. Like, when you look at objective numbers, don't perform that well. You look at like content that I'm putting out on Instagram. I can put out content that quote unquote performs way better than the material that I'm putting out in terms of engagement. But to what end? What kind of an audience are you building? Just because somebody is really good at entertaining on social media doesn't mean that anybody actually believes that they can help them solve any kind of real problem. Like, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with either one of those situations, but I think that they're very different. There was this thing that I wrote this morning, so it hasn't really been edited, but I'll share it, a little bit of it here, because I think that it kind of makes sense in terms of this. It's easier to build a bigger audience faster by doing things like sexualizing your image, eliciting anger, or being purposefully divisive. Social media algorithms respond to engagement, and more people will always engage with things that make them angry than things that legitimately help them. They'll buy, however, from people who help them. Perhaps that's why it's often the lurkers, not the likers, who purchase. If the way you've built an audience is inconsistent with the product or service you want to sell, you'll be rich with likes, but poor with dollars. I shouldn't need to say this, but if you build a following by posting sweaty photos of tits, abs, and asses, then I've got bad news for you.
Well,
Most people aren't there for your world-renowned fitness expertise. And so I thought about this, and I added this to the book, which is like not about fitness and fitness coaching specifically anymore, but of course there's a lot of examples of that. And I remembered a story, and the story that I remembered is, I can't remember what her name was, but I'll never forget what this woman did. She was an Instagram fitness model, and she built up a massive following by posting just overly sexualized photos of herself. And that's, I mean, if that's what you want to do, I don't judge. But at the same time, I get messaged almost every single day by men and women who own like really sexualized fitness accounts, and often they have big audiences. And the messages are often this combination of, or some variation of, hey, I have this huge audience, but whenever I try to sell anything, it goes silence. And what you got to know is that a surprisingly large percentage of the people who have these kinds of accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers still are bartending or waiting tables on weekends to make ends meet, which, ironically, is very similar to the entertainment industry in Los Angeles, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Some of them are going to break through and become, famous entertainers. Most of them don't, though. Most of them are going to bust their ass waiting tables for a lot of years, and we're going to celebrate the outliers who break through, like the Brad Pitts. But for the most part, you don't hear about them because they're kind of like sob stories. But then there was this one woman who did it differently. So what happens, of course, right, is that they're building an audience that's inconsistent with how they actually want to serve the audience. So this one person did it differently. She didn't sell fitness coaching. Instead, what she did was this. She sold an ebook called How to Date Girls Like Me.
Nice.
So after I was done hating the world for a while, I was slow clapping in my head. Because she knew her audience, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
One of the few.
And so this idea of overnight sensation is, I think, is multifaceted. When somebody seems like they popped up overnight, but they've actually have like a real value and people trust them, it's because they've been doing this work, like work that doesn't get a big response
Mm-hmm.
often for a very long time until that boils over. Most of the time, what you see though is you see people who post sexualized, divisive, very like intense. I mean, I know people like this, and if they know what they're doing and they're doing it on purpose and they have the reasons to do it, that's fine. I think for the most part they don't though. They're just jumping on every single fitness or health trend that's hot, and they're like, I did this for 27 days and here's what I learned next month. I did this for 27 days. It's like, and then I talk to them and they're like, yo bro, can you help me get some clients? I only have 5. It's like, you have
Right.
like 400,000 followers. Maybe you should stop doing that dumb shit and actually focus on the one way where you know where you can help people. And that's going to be really bad for your ego, but it's going to be way better for your wallet. And at the end of the day, what's going to happen is you're going to become an overnight sensation because you're going to have actually helped a lot of people solve problems.
It's going to be bad for that follower count too. So get ready.
But
Well,
it's,
that's
that's a good thing though, right? Like it's kind of
It's a
like bulk season and cut season. You've
very
bulked, now
good
it's time to
season.
cut.
Very good thing. But so much ego is attached to that number. It's similar to as we work as fitness professionals with our clients in the scale. You know,
Mhm.
I've had clients drop inches and inches and inches on their weight, revolutionize their physique, and get pissed off because that scale was 5 pounds higher than what they wanted it to be initially. Everything else is sleeping better, looking better, feeling better, more confident, better health markers. But that stupid ass scale's 5 pounds higher than what they wanted, and they will
Right.
crash and burn. And you see that in social media. People will not give away that that vanity metric to
It's the
actually
vanity
do the
metrics,
real
yeah.
shit that comes with the vanity metric. They want to look successful more than they want to be successful, and that's just stupid to me.
So this brings up a different conversation that I'm gonna, because I haven't had you guys contribute to the book for a couple weeks. so so part of what I haven't written yet, but I have notes to write, is I want to make a call for new metrics. Because I
Right.
agree, a lot of the issue stems from looking at the wrong metrics to measure our progress. And I think metrics like engagement, I think metrics like likes, I think metrics like shares are actually very bad metrics if you're trying to build a business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they reflect the actual work that's going on. I think what they are is, I think that they're the social media company doing what the social media company needs to do to addict you to use that social media company better. I
Right.
think that they're useful metrics if your stated goal is to become famous on that social media platform. But becoming famous on that social media platform and actually building a business are two very distinctly different things. And they could be a correlation at a certain point if you do it in a way that it's aligned, but it's most often not. This woman who wanted to sell an ebook called How to Date Girls Who Look Like Me, in her
Yeah.
case it was aligned. And if you
Right.
are, I mean, there's lots of examples now where of OnlyFans models, male and women, men and women, who are building these super sexualized accounts on front facing social medias like Instagram, and they're like, hey, I can only show you 90% there. If you want the last 10, come and join my OnlyFans. And they link out to their OnlyFans. Super effective way to use that media with that as your goal in mind. So I want to make a call. So like I don't think the metrics are inherently bad, but I don't think that the metrics are also inherently good. And so what I want to do is try to figure out what metrics are good. Is there, and probably not metrics that the system is going to show you. This
Right.
might be like, if you were to put out a call for, I don't know, some live seminar that you're giving or an online seminar or whatever, how many people would show up?
Right.
Like metrics like that. Can you think of anything? I'm putting you on the spot here, but this is what
Hell
I'm.
yeah. I would go
Okay.
dollars per follower, because that gives me an indication of the density of my message being received. Per my followers and my earned income, how many dollars am I generating per follower? Right?
Saving Tom's
Do-
privates. What
yeah,
density are you receiving?
saving Ryan's privates.
Saving Ryan's privates.
Yeah. How
Wasn't that
dense?
an actual
What's
movie?
the dense? Yeah, it's the
It
actual
was an
dollar
actual one that
amount
came
of
out.
Ryan's privates. But
So how would you calculate that?
I take my annual or monthly dollars and I divide it by the number of followers. It's a
So
simple.
you wouldn't think in any way, shape, or form whether the dollars came from those followers. You wouldn't even consider that. You would just say,
In the because I've got to start my metrics somewhere, and that's the
yeah,
easiest, simplest, lowest hanging conversion for me to get probably a 50,000 foot view of what's going on. Now I can break it down into a more specific metric of demographic, right? For my women followers, what do those dollars add up to? I can look at who's liked what, and per shares, per likes. I mean, there's depth of the math that you can go down into, but I think from a general position, getting a general idea, the easiest possible way of how effective I may possibly be on social media, knowing what my dollars per follower is, gives me something at least to track. So as I
right,
see the other metrics that are involved over the course of a 6 month process or even a year, I get a better general understanding of how my posting is converting to real dollars. It's not specific. It's not the greatest way to do it. It's sort of like trying to figure out body fat percentage by just doing circumference measurements. It's not the
Mhm.
accuracy that I need. I need the
right.
consistency in the measurement to be able to look at trends easily. I could
But
go into greater
Reliability over
detail.
validity.
so
Yeah,
here's
just from
here's my only issue with that is my opinion is that I was going to say my contention, and then I thought to myself, I'm like, why?
We have a thing on that. Hang on to
Yeah.
that word. We'll revisit
Uh,
that problem.
oh yeah, don't write like a pompous asshole.
Yeah,
Uh,
that one.
yeah, that one. My opinion on that, though, is in many cases, in fact, I think probably in the majority of cases,
Mhm.
the best way to operate is actually to not use social media.
Oh yeah,
And
well
so,
yeah.
how would you even balance that? You know what I'm saying? Like how? I mean, how would you ever know that? That's where I'm having a tricky time with the metrics.
Well, one
Like,
one
go
way to
ahead.
know is to categorize your sales. You know,
Yeah, that's what I was
when
gonna
you're having
say.
you have your enrollment calls, you source where the enrollment call came from. You can take those numbers, only those dollar amounts, and divide it by the followers, and you know where it came from.
Right.
It's a bit more accurate, probably still not perfect, but it does give me a better clarity.
It's a better
Because,
idea.
and one reason I like that metric is because you may find out, and probably a lot of people would find out, that the greater percentage of their dollars is coming from not social media sources, which gives you the opportunity, like you do with most of the hot seats, to say, well, if you got most of your clients from the flyers that you put up around town and you've never
Right.
got a client from social media, why are we talking about how to get you more followers on social media?
Almost every single hot seat that I do in my mentorship is that
It's always that.
is people saying, "Hey, my I'm posting a lot. I feel like my message isn't hitting. People aren't responding." I'm like, these are successful people, right? Like, you
Right.
wouldn't be in my mentorship if you were not doing well. You are by
Right.
definition doing well and looking to do better. And so my answer, my line of questioning to all of them is just like, okay, so tell me about, like, how you got your best client. Oh, cool. So that had nothing to do with social media, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. What would you say, like would you say that most of your clients came in that way? Yeah. Have you ever gotten a client from social media? Like maybe one, but like, they heard about me from somewhere else and then they went and checked. Okay, so you've quite literally, this has never worked for you. Like, actually never worked. But that thing that you have always kind of done has always worked really well. So why are we talking about this thing and you're stressing about this thing that has never worked, that you're trying to get to work for the first time, when this other way it clearly works better to achieve? Why don't we just like get better at that and do better at that? While the rest of the world is trying to perform squats poorly online, maybe your days shouldn't be committed to trying to figure out how to match trendy music to pointing at words that appear into space. I don't know. Just saying.
Right.
Amber, do you have anything to add before we move on to?
I was going to say
next?
we should definitely move on. The only thing I will say would be really interesting is if you could change based off of what your goal is in using social media. Like, you know how you have like the creator option and then all of these different things where it changes the insights based on what your goal is in using social media. That would be cool. Although, and
so
I will say that
I'm
Facebook has been messing with me too. They've been trying to like bait me. I keep getting notification like, hey, like you've been on a streak of X amount of days and your visibility is growing. And then it makes you like, oh man, I'm on a roll. Keep going. So they've been.
It actually says that too.
Yes, it does.
Says, you're on a roll. You've increased more creators today. I've increased more creators. I've said more dumb shit that people thought was funny.
Yes.
Yep.
But that's so. I actually make a call for that in the book. I make a call for exactly that. I say the data that these platforms show you is not the data that is necessarily important to you. It is the data that these platforms know they show you so that you use their platform more to do better on their platform, which may or may not be connected to your thing. They're not going to give you data on how to actually do better in your business, because that would mean that you would do less free work for their business.
Right.
They're not going to do that. That's up to you. I like that. I like the idea of just ballparking, like, hey, I'm going to categorize my customers. Did you come from social media directly or did you not? There's going to be some gray area there. And then, okay, if these 10 clients, what were they worth to me? How many social media followers do I have? And then you can even take it a step farther and you could be like, okay, so 5 customers this year have come from Instagram. Those 5 customers have been worth $800 to me. And I've spent an estimated 97 hours on Instagram. So my hourly rate then is what is that?
Oh my God, you're doing public math?
No. $800. My hourly rate is $8.25. I did public math on a calculator. So then you're like, okay, well, how much is my time worth?
Right.
Definitely more than $8 an hour.
$8.25? Yeah. Have fun eating your ramen.
That's still higher than the minimum wage in my state. So
seriously?
$7.25 is our minimum wage here.
Yeah.
I gotta move out to the States, man. I'd live like
You'd be filthy rich, yeah, for sure.
I'd live like a king if I moved out there. Jesus.
But then you're surrounded by interesting people.
People like us.
There's a trade-off.
People like us do things like this here, and y'all don't want anything to do with it.
Nope.
You can regulate us here on the podcast, but in real life,
we're a mess.
All right, what do we got next?
Yeah. This one's interesting because everybody struggles with this. Sales come first. Nothing matters until you make a sell.
Well, that's the Google X analogy, isn't it? The monkeys and pedestals.
Yeah. Well, I was just having this email conversation with the guy that emailed you asking about OTA. And he's like,
what was it? Tell me about it.
He was just
I just forward you emails I don't want to answer.
I know. Yeah. Well, because I know. He had questions about OTA.
I don't want to answer that. I feel like you will be able to give a much more empathetic, you know what I mean?
Well, and I know the course better than you at this stage. So,
it's fair.
But he had questions. He's like, okay, like at what stage do I register my business? At what stage do I like design my logo and my branding? I was like, you ain't doing any of that shit. Like I'm like forbidding you from doing any of it until you start making money.
Wow.
So That was a long conversation because he was having a really hard time with moving past that concept.
It is a difficult concept to go past because we worry, right? Particularly the legal stuff. We worry about it. We worry about worst case scenarios, and we worry more about loss than we do about gain. It's something called loss aversion, and so we're motivated by loss. The famous experiment is this was in a college, and what they did is there was like a mug. There was like a mug with like the college emblem on it, and they asked people. They said, "How much would you pay for this mug?" And people said, "Whatever, like $2." And then they gave somebody a mug, and they said, "Hey, I want to buy that from you. How much will you sell it to me for?" And people said $6. There is a huge difference in what somebody thinks that something is worth when they already have it and they're worried about losing it than there is about gaining something.
You see that evident in yard sales. Like, you want how much for that broken child's toy? No.
And so I think that comes into play with what you're talking about, though, Amber, isn't it? Where there's worry about losing something, and you probably can't even really explain it. But hey, am I going to lose face, lose reputation? Am I going to
not look
get
professional?
Sued? Am I going to not look professional? Versus the potential gain, which far outweighs the loss. But if you are interested in this, look up the curve, look up the loss aversion curve. You can just search loss aversion and you'll see the chart, and you'll see the trend. You can see exactly how it is. And I think, look, what it comes down to is this: as you're building up your business, there's lots of easy tasks and there's only one hard task. The easy tasks are things like setting up a legal corporation, designing a logo, creating the content, building a website, writing down lots of ideas. And they're easy tasks because you know that you can do them, right? They might take time. They might be difficult to execute or continue to execute on, but you know that you can do them. But then the only hard task that there is selling. Will anybody buy your thing? Will anybody pay you for what you know, for your ability to coach them? And you don't know the answer to that yet. And none of the other shit matters if you don't have that.
It's going to be wrong anyway. You don't know anything at this stage to design anything.
Right.
You're going to be wrong. 100% you're going to be wrong.
What are you building anyway? Like, okay, tell me. All right, let's build it. What are we building? What do they need?
Well, they don't know.
They don't idea.
Know. And that's why, I've seen a lot more coaches. I've seen a lot more people fail because they didn't have enough sales than I've seen go under from lack of a logo.
Yep.
Right.
You can always go back and fill in those gaps. But if you don't have sales, you're never going to be able to get started.
Put that in the book, please, if it's not already.
Well, there's a fair bit about this. I mean, this is I talk about the monkeys and pedestals example. I went over that on the podcast.
I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's just a really good one. It's
visually enjoyable.
It's visually enjoyable.
Yeah.
You're training a monkey to juggle sticks while standing on a pedestal. There's two jobs: teaching a monkey to juggle flaming sticks and building the pedestal. You know you can build the pedestal. Might be hard, might cost money. You don't yet know whether you can train a monkey to juggle sticks. And so the bottleneck is teaching a monkey to juggle fire. If you can't do that, there's no point in building the pedestal, because who wants to watch a monkey setting fire on itself because some asshole human had it throwing flaming sticks in the air?
I need to see an animation of this story.
Yeah, that
just does need an animation.
It does.
It should happen at some point.
All right.
So the sales come first. So whenever I see anybody say anything about, hey, how do I start an online training business? I'm going to make a sale. Get somebody to buy it. I don't give a shit how you do that. It does not matter how you do that. Knock on doors. Literally just ask 100 people in the next month, will you buy coaching from me? It is $50. Here is the link to pay.
Right.
Like, just...
I pulled names out of a hat on a Facebook Live in 2014. That's how I started my online
Tell me
business.
about that. Tell me about that. How'd you do that?
I had a following. I had from 2013 to 2014, I had a following on Facebook. One of my friends said, "Hey, you like fitness? Why don't you do a fitness page?" Everybody was doing it. I did it. It was called I Got a Fitness Jones at the time. And then I got certified in 2014. That's where Fitness Jones training came from. And then in 2014, I got certified. I said, "Hey, I'm a trainer and I want to try to train people online. Anybody out there want to volunteer? I'll put your name in a hat and I'll do a live on Wednesday." Like 10, 15 people volunteered. I literally wrote their names out on little tiny pieces of paper, folded the paper up on a live broadcast, shook up a Carolina Panthers hat that was upside down, pulled out the name, and the name was Tanya Easterling. No, it's Pamela McClooney. And I said, bring a friend with you. Yeah, Pamela won, and I said, and you get to bring a friend. And she volunteered Tanya Easterling.
Smart.
Those were my first 2 clients. And I fumbled.
So just do that.
Just do that.
So literally just do that. Literally just do that. Just get your Fitness Jones training inside your Ryan's Privates.
Ryan's Privates are going to be famous after this. Shout out to you, Ryan.
Your Carolina Panthers hat.
Yeah, your privates.
Ren, I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'm sure you've done this, but so you know the term, like, I'm really jonesing for something.
Yes.
Have you used that?
Yes. I'm jonesing for a workout.
Okay, because it was missed opportunity if not. And if I didn't tell you now, I was going to be
t-shirts. My first t-shirts that I sold 3 of were I'm jonesing for a workout.
Okay, good.
But now my t-shirts sell like hotcakes because I sold some shirts. Not because I thought about shirts. Yeah, you don't have one, John. Yeah, you don't get one. Yeah, you wear the same shirt all the time. There'd be no free pub on that, John. It's just... Did you wear
one of your shirts when you went to Disney World with your lady friend?
No, but she did.
She did. Oh, tell me about her.
Yeah, that's enough. Good talk. Good talk, right, John.
Moving on. We gotta get through these. Freedom is being able to do what you want, with who you want, how you want, when you want. Money can both add and detract from it.
Right. So I'll paint you a picture. I was in Costa Rica, and there was somebody who I'd gotten to know over the years. His name was Don Tapani, and Don Tapani was an ex-Hindu monk. Was at a monastery. Yeah, he was at a monastery in Kauai.
Stories that sound like bullshit for 1,000, Alex.
Right.
Well, you could actually look up Don Tapani. He's a legend. His stuff is great. He's gone viral like tons of times, so he's got a big following now. But Don Tapani was a monk. He was a monk when he was like 14 years old or something. He basically left and joined this monastery on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. And the monastery was actually famous. There's an Apple documentary about it because the leader of the monastery believed that if you had a message worth sharing, it was your responsibility to master the tools to share that message. And so every monk was given an Apple computer and taught Photoshop and Final Cut Pro. And so Don Tapani was there and spent 10 years at this monastery, and then left. He had $2,500, his monk robes, and he went to New York City to set up his life. And he became basically like an entrepreneur and like business guru guy, helping them with mindfulness, helping them figure out tough problems and stuff. And so I'd gotten to know him over the years through some of the communities I was in. We hit it off, and he's building a big retreat center in Costa Rica where we used to live. And so I helped him, like Alice and I would like help him survey the land and all that kind of stuff. So we spent a lot of time with him. And there was one time he was in a bathing suit. And so my title for this section is "An ex-Hindu monk in a bathing suit told me how to make lots of money." And here's how the story goes, more or less. By 2015 or so, my business was doing good, but I was working morning to night. Like I was working long hours. This was before kids. And we were living in Costa Rica. We were living in Nosara, and so was Don Tapani. And he had become a good friend. And so we met him for sunset one night at Playa Guiones Beach, which is one of the main beaches in Nosara. He was knee deep in the water. Everybody kind of goes there for like sunset. The water's really shallow. It's beautiful. And we were curious where they were like living in town at that time. And so Allison asked him, "Where are you?" And he responded, "I am here." And that just gives you an idea of how the conversation started and the kind of guy that he is. But I asked him the question that I'd kind of been struggling with. And I can't remember exactly how I phrased it, but it was something to the tune of like, I didn't like desire this. Like, I didn't set out to make a bunch of money. I thought I was going to be a good Jewish boy and be a doctor and like go to work every day and whatever. And then I wasn't smart enough to do that. So I was a personal trainer and figured I wasn't going to make a lot of money, but like have an amazing life and be fit and work in the gym. And now I somehow like write stuff on the internet and people pay me for it. And so, I've somehow found myself like making more money than I ever thought that I would make. But I'm working really hard. And so is there such a thing as too much money? And how do I know when I've made enough? And I Googled this problem like multiple times. It's actually a problem that fascinates me, is the psychology of money, is wealth generation. And the advice whenever I Googled it was always some variation of calculating your yearly expenses, assuming an average interest rate, and then accumulating enough money in savings basically where the interest rate pays off of the money that pays for your life. And it's this idea. There's this big movement called FIRE, which is like basically retire early, or Fat FIRE, which is like retire early with a fat stash, which is a great subreddit, is Fat FIRE. Mm-hmm. But it's always based around this idea of, hey, I have this amount of net worth, this average interest rate, like, okay, I'm done. Now I can retire early. And I was like, it doesn't seem that obvious to me. It doesn't seem like enough can be a calculation. It seems to me like human emotions are way too complex for that. And so what Don Depani taught me was that enough isn't a number, it's an idea. He told me that if I wasn't careful, wanting more would trap me into a corner. It had forced me to actions that didn't align energetically with what I knew was right, tempting me to lie, cheat, and even sometimes steal. And what he said is that if you ever feel like you're being forced into doing something you know in your heart isn't right, he said that's too much. But he said, as so long as you're doing what you know in your heart is good and you're not being tempted to act poorly, make as much money as possible, but recognize the line and be careful not to cross it. And so that meeting with him, reflecting on it, tons of reading on what people say on their deathbeds, wealth generation experts. I mean, I just finished, I walked to the library. One of my favorite things to do is just pick up a whole bunch of books when I walk through the stacks in the library and like whatever looks interesting. And then, I'll read the first 10, 15 pages and give back the ones I don't like. So I read the first like 3/4 of Ted Turner's autobiography. Ted Turner, owned Turner Sports, owned the Atlanta Braves. And this guy, made more money than sin. Like just stupid. I wouldn't trade my life with his. I mean, it didn't seem by his autobiography that he was regretful of a lot of the decisions he made. But by all accounts, he was never there for his family. He had multiple estranged women that he was with. He had lots of like insane business goings on. It was just a life that I would not desire. It was the opposite of what I just said to you. There was no semblance of what enough was. And so that's why I say, like, I don't think that money is not important. Of course, money helps. Of course, money contributes to a life of leisure, to a better life, to be able to do what you want. But it can also, I think, very much detract if you're not careful. And I think it's very valuable to know what that line is for you. And be careful not to go up. For me, I never want to miss a breakfast or dinner with my family. I just don't. Nothing is more important than that. And I don't. And if that means that somebody grows their email list faster than me, they made their decision and that's fine. I've made mine and I'm happy with it.
I've got nothing to add there.
Next one. The best way to learn is to teach others.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think this is actually the best reason to make content.
Yep.
It really is.
I think the single best reason to create content is because it helps you learn faster and understand what you know better.
Yes.
I think everybody should be a teacher. And not a teacher because they need to make money teaching, not a teacher because they need to get clients teaching. I think that everybody should be a teacher because selfishly being a teacher is the best way to understand something yourself. If you only understand something in the way that your brain makes sense of it for your own purposes, you don't really get the thing. The minute that you have to articulate it for somebody who has no prior background, the minute that you have to articulate that thing for somebody who isn't you, that thinks differently with different biases and histories, and they've heard a lot of different things before, the minute that you have to talk about a concept to that person so they understand, it forces you to simplify it, it forces you to clarify it, it forces you to see an idea through somebody else's eyes. And you get way better, way faster. And so I do think that everybody should create content. I don't think that most people should create content in the hopes that it's going to generate them any clients. I think they should do it because it's the best way to learn.
I've got a hack for this. Hack's not the right word, but for all the coaches, hack for this. But for all the coaches that are listening out there that are going through certification processes, one of the things that I've always done is chapter for chapter, subject for subject. I get on the internet and talk about whatever it is I just learned, whatever quiz I just took, whatever section of the certification process, and it helps you. It helps you fly through a certification to learn something, think about it, go on the internet and teach it to your potential clients as soon as you can. Most of my content recently has been a result of 2 menopause certifications, because the only way that I can keep this stuff in my head is to get on the internet and try to teach it to people in an easily understandable way. It's a huge advantage when you're going through certifications.
It also shows that you're learning, doesn't it? Like, even if you don't have a quote unquote audience, like there's some people paying attention, and all that you're doing is you're like, yo, I'm continuing to learn and get better. You're writing it for yourself doesn't mean that there doesn't have to be little bits of benefits. Because really, I mean, let's be honest, like, what's there's maybe 10 topics, 15 topics in the fitness industry that matter. Like, we're going to just repeat the same shit over and over and over again, different ways for the next 20 years, 30 years. At a certain point, you're going to need some way to generate ideas.
Right. Right. You got to get stuck.
Yeah. You can't just tell people to go for a walk over and over and over again. It's going to play out.
Yep. All right. This next one, I like this one because I've been talking to a lot of students about this lately. Write simply. Nobody is impressed that you used a big word. Make it easy to read.
It's my contention.
Here we go.
I so appreciate how you brought that forward. Thank
you. What's your contention, John?
There's Richard Feynman, physics professor.
Okay. I know, because of Big Bang Theory.
Famous physics professor, part of the Manhattan Project. There's a book of his essays called Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. It's a fun read to flip through. You don't have to read every one, but he tells the story in one of them. He taught at this Brazilian college. And at the Brazilian college, he was trying to get people to really understand the concepts. And all they wanted to know was they wanted to know the names for things so they could pass their standardized test and go work for the government. And what he said is, being able to know the name of a bird is fucking irrelevant. I don't care if you know the name of something. I don't care if you know the jargon. I need you to be able to explain to me how the thing works. What we often see is people default, when they don't really know that much about the subject, to overcomplicating it or to relying on jargon or bigger words, often as a way to make up for their lack of understanding about the thing. The simpler you're able to communicate something, generally, in almost every case, the better you understand the thing. In addition, the vast majority of the world, even the United States, reads at something like a 5th grade level. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think that you need to write for the world. I do think, actually, like, I create my content for smart people. But at the same time, if you want to make your material accessible, speak simply. And so there's a couple main ways to speak simply. There's a fantastic. It's like half a page. It's super quick, but it's by Scott Adams, the guy who created Dilbert. And you can look up this blog post. It's probably the best one on the subject. And I think it's called "The Day You Became a Better Writer." And it's just really, really simple. But it talks about business writing, but it talks about the elimination of useless words, like basically the word "very" you never need to put in there. It talks about the importance of speaking in the active, not the passive voice. If you're going to say something, fucking say it. Or don't say it. Either's fine. But when you start speaking in the passive voice, when you start adding in a lot of extra words, like, I wasn't so sure about that time when I took my son to go see the baseball game versus I took my kid to the ball game. And then the only other part of it is the subject. In any case, the subject of the sentence should come first. Oftentimes you can have two sentences that technically mean the same thing, but the way that our brains work is the subject of the sentence needs to go first. So I think the example is the ball was thrown by the boy versus the boy threw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually mean the same thing. But the ball was thrown by the boy is it's just hard for us to wrap our head around versus the boy threw the ball. Simpler, quicker, to the point. The subject, the boy, is first. Mm-hmm. So the noun comes first, the verb comes second. There's not a lot, I think, that you need to know about writing to be an effective writer. There's a couple very simple rules, and then you just have to, and then it just becomes very hard to execute on them day by day by day, especially right now where there's this kind of pull to have to feel like you have to produce so much, so often. So just write simply. If you're going to say something, say it with confidence. Mm-hmm. Say it powerfully. Use simple words, use short sentences. Use active voice.
Use line breaks, please.
Jesus, please, yes. just for me. Just for my old eyes, please.
My favorite book on this is Smart Brevity. The people that do Axios, I refer back to it all the time. It has helped me tremendously for someone who has, like, everything has nuance and context. And so I'm always an over explainer because there's always so many different ways to look at things. And so I always write too much. And so this has helped me tremendously how to communicate more clearly, more effectively, those little tips and tricks based on how people read and whatnot. And it's just made it a lot more simple for people to understand me. So recommendation there. Let's see. The best investment is into your own health. You have one body. It comes first. If it doesn't work, nothing else you buy matters.
I mean, this one's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what fucking car you drive if your legs don't work.
Mm-hmm.
You could have...
City lights don't work.
legs.
Oh, your legs. You okay.
I mean, Canadian accent.
Every body breaks down. There's no avoiding that. As you age, your body is going to break down. The difference is, are you going to start at a high level of fitness so that as it breaks down, it will be largely unnoticeable? Or will you start at a lower level? And there's a lot of nature involved. There's a lot of genetic factors involved as well. Mm-hmm. But I want to give myself the best odds to live as good as I can. Mm-hmm. And it's so little time to take care of yourself. I mean, you don't need to pump weights. You just got to move. You just got to eat decently. Like, we're talking, what, an hour and a half a week of exercise? It really, I mean, is all you need. How many hours is there in a week? Let's see. 168 hours in a week.
A lot of math on this episode. I'm shocked. This what you're like
1%. 1% of your time is what you have to commit to exercise reasonably every week. It's not a lot. And nothing you do, I mean, look, if you don't commit that and get healthier, maybe nothing will happen. Maybe you'll be good. But nothing you buy is going to matter if your body doesn't work. It's the same conversation as the sales conversation that we had, but perhaps a much more important one in the great scheme of things. It doesn't matter how much you know about fucking calorie deficit if you never have a single client because you've never sold to them. So the sale always comes first. It's the same thing if you're going to spend money. I mean, we're preaching to the converted at this point, I think, on this podcast. But if you're going to spend money, you should probably spend money on your own health and fitness first for no other reason than if that breaks down, nothing else is going to matter.
Agreed.
This is true. This is your greatest asset.
I mean, I don't know. Probably didn't need to talk that much about that one. Probably just gone by the headline.
That's
like every single Cal Newport book ever. Ask me what I think about his books. So good they can't ignore you. It's like, you don't need to read that book. It's the title. That's all it is. That's all it is. This is the title. I picked up another. I was like, people keep talking about this guy's books and how good they are, and I keep picking them up. And there was another one. I picked up another one at the library. Let me see. What was the title of it? And it was the same kind of thing. Deep Work. Same thing. I don't need to read that fucking book. A World Without Email. That was the one that I picked up at the library. A World Without Email. It's like, I was reading it and I gave it such a good try, man. Such a good try. And I'd read like a section, then I'd flip to another, and then I flip to another. I'm like, the title. It's all you need.
Good try though, John. Proud of you, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks for effort. All right, last one. If you feel the urge to give a sincere compliment, do it. You might never have another chance. I like ending on this one.
That one's deep. That one's deep.
This is my favorite thing to do. I'm so awkward, like socially, but this is like, I make it purposely awkward doing this, but everywhere I go, like cashier, if I'm through the drive-through at fast food, like, oh, I love your nails. Oh man, your tattoo's awesome. Or like everywhere, constantly like throwing out random compliments.
So why is it so important to you?
I think it's a few things. Like, for one, it makes me feel good. It feels good to say something nice to other people, but also like, I know when I've had someone randomly stop and say something about me, like my face may not convey the appropriate response because I'm like, who the fuck are you? And why are you talking to me? You know, is my initial reaction. Because I'm scared that someone randomly talked to me. But like when I stop to think about it, it's like, oh, I really needed that today. Like, you know, how often, you know, are we kind of moving through our day on autopilot and we're, you know, our own worst enemies? And then someone notices a thing about you and felt that like so strongly that they wanted to communicate like that. It takes a lot of energy to do that. And so it just is that much more meaningful. So I know how much it means to me. And especially for guys, right? Because I mean, to my understanding, guys tend not to get a lot of compliments and they carry the last compliment from like they got 10 years ago with them today. Absolutely. You know, women tend to get a few more compliments because it's a little safer for us to share them or, you know, whatever. But like, especially to guys, need more compliments.
1976, some lady said, "You're a good boy" to me, and I've written that thing since '76. I'm not gonna lie to you. There hasn't been another one in between now and then, but I'm living off that one.
Yep. I had a dude compliment my calves in 2020.
Nice.
Yeah,
calves are a big deal for men. Yeah.
Man, if I had some, I would like to get a compliment like that, but I don't have any.
That's all short guys have, man. We get airplane space and we get calves. That's all we got.
There you go.
Short muscle insertions, and we fit in airplanes.
You live. I like things.
Yeah, it's fair. I'll be quick on this one because I think there's just one or two sentences to say. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say a lot more sentences than I need to about how few sentences there are.
Yeah. That's on brand.
Of course you are.
That's what I want to do whenever I go to a new place. I want to learn enough of a language to be able to say, I don't speak this language. I only know how to say that I don't speak the language in the sentence that I don't speak the language. And then they'll just look at me like, okay.
Yeah.
But all that I'll say about this, I just, it's such an obvious win for everybody. And yet we have this mental block around it. And so I like having that written out just as a reminder to myself to kind of look past the mental block. And I'm not perfect with it. I'd like to be better at it. But it's such an obvious win to everybody. You're right. It makes me feel good. This isn't some altruistic thing.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel good to do it. I know that it makes you like me more also, which also benefits me. And it's also making your day sometimes, maybe. I will say, as a guy, it helps. I feel like it helps sometimes that I have a wedding ring on.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm like, well, I guess when I'm saying stuff to like guys or girls, I don't know. But I don't know. At the same time, though, I feel like that could be a move that like really sketchy ass guys play, where they put on a wedding ring to like make them more safer to women, and then
Adam Sandler did a movie about it.
Did he?
Yeah.
God, that guy beat me on everything.
He really did. Yeah, it was a good
I was
movie.
also going to do this movie about discovering this basketball player in Europe that nobody discovered, and then bringing him in. And then I was also going to do this movie about having a bunch of dates with a woman who lost her memory, and then every day we just do the same date. And then I was also going to do this movie about...
He beat you on all three, John.
He beat me on
I did this with Alina the other day. I sent her a message. So Alina and her husband help with our blog and social media and stuff like that. And just like random, like, hey, like, just want to let you know, like, you know this already, how awesome you and your husband are. But
Yeah,
like,
they're great.
By the way, like, you are awesome, just to confirm. And like John has mentioned you several times about how great, you guys are doing. So just in case you forgot, you're awesome. Right. And so like, boom, message sent. And then she responded back like super excited and, it's very sweet. So as often as we can.
Is that it? Is that my 22 rules to
that's it?
Make millions of dollars and live a great life and have freedom and be make six figures passively and how many more cringy lines are we gonna throw?
Cringe.
So yeah, exactly.
I'd block you. If you sent this to me, I'd block you. I'm just
But it's point of reference, right? But that's the thing. It's cringy to us because we're in the industry. For people that are new to the industry or aren't used to a lot of this stuff, they don't. It works for them, right? It's like any clickbait title fucking works. So
it's informative. I liked it.
Good. I'm glad. And Wen, I hope you enjoy your copy of Shaving Ryan's Privates.
Oh no.
I'm in the third chapter now where they're hiding in the bush.
Oh no.
Oh, it's thorny in there though, isn't it?
There's only two soldiers though. It's crazy.
Oh my god. You get stuck in the thatch.
Two soldiers in the long gun.
This is going to be on
all
like
they got in the bush. So we'll see what happens.
DVD marked down to 99 cents right there.
Yeah. I need John.
I always
to do
wonder why
screenplay.
we have that explicit tag on all our podcasts.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Originally I was really shocked because this isn't a big thing where you are, but you say goddamn, and like where I live, you
South,
don't say that. And so it took me a while to get used to you saying that.
String you up down here, boy. What you say about Jesus' son? Jesus' father?
What?
In trouble down here, John.
Yeah.
You keep being Canadian. We need you.
Yeah. And now I say it too, and it's your fault. So, FYI. I blame you.
Well, thank you for listening to the Obvious Choice podcast. Really appreciate you being here, sticking with us this whole time. Let me recommend another episode to you. Before you get going, I re-listened to this episode, actually, not too long ago. And this is episode 11. We're going way back.
Wow.
And I think this was the first episode that we recorded that was like really, really good. I remember after we recorded, I was like, all right, we're on to something now. First 10 episodes, like we were figuring some stuff out. Like we're not so proud of those. But this episode, I think that it started to get really good. There's a lot of really great snippets. And so episode 11, the title of it is Buying $500 from a Meat Truck Future Me Hates Current Me, and Tuk Tuk.
Before we had a title convention.
Right.
If you want to know the story of MC Tuk Tuk, the origins of Ren's the origin of Ren's name, MC Tuk Tuk,
there you go.
then episode 11. Anyway, hope that you enjoy. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.